Hello, welcome to the second episode of Pianoforte Podcast. I am your co-host Felicia and I am joined with my co-host Audrey.
Hello. Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, so this episode, we are going to be talking about what we do, which is teaching for the most parts.
Yes, for the most parts,
Yeah,
uh,
for you.
it is most part for me because it is my main source of income, but
Mm-hmm.
it is like your 90%.
In my 100% source of income, you mean?
No, I mean like 90% of your activity, music activity.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. For me, it's like 45%, maybe. Maybe actually now
That's
reducing,
nice.
though. I actually know it's reducing, which makes me a bit scared because money. Anyway,
Money.
yeah.
Yeah.
Today's topic is going to be a bit general. Again, we just want to introduce our standpoint before going in deeper into like very specific teaching
Topics,
topics.
yeah.
Right. But do we want to share a little bit of music, what we are currently listening to, or albums or whatever?
What we are currently listening to. Okay, so this one,
Mm-hmm.
I am listening to let me think of this. Borodin's String
Oh,
Quartet number 2.
I probably don't know that. I don't know. Actually, I don't really know Borodin's works. So,
I don't know much of his works, but I
mhm.
do know his String Quartet number 2 and it's really really nice. I actually end up liking all four movements, but I really started liking the I believe oh no, I can't remember. The slow one, the slow movement, the nocturne.
Probably second movement, right? Like the slow
Second or
move.
third, I can't remember.
Usually it's in the middle, but
It's in the middle, but it could be the third movement. I can't remember
could
now.
also be the third. Yes.
One of those two, second or third movements. But the slow one, I really liked it, and I ended up listening to the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
all four movements, and then now I like all of them.
That's that's good. When you start to like only a certain part and then you grow more interest to the entire thing. I think
Yeah.
I think that's the best feeling as composers, at least in my opinion, when you know like your audience could uh fall in love progressively, like,
Mm-hmm.
and just like,
Like you never tire of it, right?
yeah,
Listening to it.
because when you fall in love like in this progress, like you always find like, oh, this part is interesting, that part is interesting, and so on and so forth, and you just keep listening to that work just because of the curiosity, like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
know more if I miss something that might be interesting, at least in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Definitely, yes. So that's what I've been listening to.
That's
And what
great.
about you?
So if we're talking about generally this month, I've been re-listening to K-pop. I
Mm-hmm.
went back and forth with K-pop since back in high school, but now I'm back. But yesterday, as per we are recording this, yesterday there's a new album from Emily Bear and Abigail Barlow, which is an unofficial Bridgerton musical, which was a TikTok sensation. It started as like TikTok creative projects, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up like listening to a couple of the songs, basically, like the ones that they did on TikTok, and I liked it.
Yeah.
So listened to it yesterday, and definitely it will be the same like your Borodins, because I would be like, oh, I didn't notice that before. Oh, I didn't notice that before. Oh,
Yeah, and
that's a good
you end up
harmony.
liking everything they do, right?
Yeah, I will dig through it slowly. But since I
Mm-hmm.
had quite a busy weekend so far, I have only listened to the album once. I had already picked up some new favorites. Be like, oh, I didn't notice this. This is lit, and yeah. So that's that. Interesting. Should we go into the teaching stuff?
Yes, we shall.
All right. Um,
Should I start? Do you want to start?
Last week you start. Maybe I can start this time. Maybe.
Okay.
What do you think? Okay. So a little backstory again. I am born in Indonesia, now residing in Germany. But for teaching, I do collect experiences from both countries. It's not just because I finished my study here in Germany and then I started teaching. No, particularly in Indonesia, I started teaching as mini job around 4 or 5 years during high school and a little bit after I graduated and a little bit before I entered high school. So in total, it was 5 years. Um, I also teached as an assistants for group ensembles, group lessons, but mostly private classes, just one on one.
Private, like one-on-one.
Yeah, private
In
one on
piano.
one in piano. Yes. I only teach piano as far now. Also electrones actually, piano and electrones. Right. Um, and in Germany, I've been teaching for the past 3 years. So I didn't teach my first year of university. I started on my second year and continued until now. It also started as a mini job, which means under
On the side, a few students kind of thing.
it was under 20 hours per week, under 450 euros per month. I believe that's the regulation. And I had an internship semester mandatory from the uni on my, I believe, seventh semester.
Yeah, seventh semester.
There where I applied to many more schools and also applied to the kind of the government, be like, hey, I am now a freelancer. I'm working more hours and I'm earning more than the mini job regimen, like the regulation. I just don't want to mess up with that because I'm scared. I do not want to be thrown out of the country just because tax and stuff. So I did my tax declaration for the first time this year because finally I earn more and work more. But I did not have to pay tax because even though I earned more. In total, in 2020, I was still under the limit. So yes, at one point during that very busy semester, I taught 30 students. With the majority of the demographic being teenagers, especially girl teenagers. I don't know. I get a lot of my students as a substitute teacher. So somebody left and I took over the students.
Right. So a lot of them are like transfer students.
Yes, transfer students. And I don't own. I don't have many newcomers to me. So I think the demographic is more like if teachers left, which demographic would more likely to stay? You know what I mean? Like teenager boys might just leave, just like okay, yeah.
I see.
Or adults also might okay, yeah, maybe I'll take a break or whatever.
Maybe it's time to stop. Yeah.
I mean, if they're younger, kids, they'll probably continue. But that how it became the teenager female,
category.
Right? Yeah, teenager female. They continued from childhood, basically. Yeah. And here, I believe the system is pretty similar to in Indonesia, that we have 30, 45, or 1 hour lessons. But I teach here mostly 30 minutes and 45 minutes. Mostly.
Right.
Very rarely 1 hour. Very rarely. I think only one student would take 1 hour, but every 2 weeks. So.
Okay. That kind of balances out.
Yeah, that kind of balances out, actually. And I think we mentioned, maybe we haven't mentioned. Did we mention it last week?
Which one?
I make my materials a lot by myself. I don't think we mentioned it.
I can't remember if you mentioned that last time.
Yeah. It's a big...
But now we have it.
Yeah. The thing is, Felicia and me both talk back and forth daily. So sometimes I
Yes.
felt like even though we are recording now, it's not like new news for us. It's like old news.
No, it's not.
Yeah. But for you guys, audience, it might be new news that I do make a lot of my materials by myself. Most likely just because I know what fits best to my students, and some particular songs I just cannot find it online. Like, especially because I'm teaching like pop as well. Like,
Yes.
for classical, there's this IMSLP domain
Yes.
for music sheets, but for pop, there are my students that also learn by watching YouTube videos, like with me together as well. We slowly kind of analyze the videos and be like, oh, let's map it this way so that you remember it better. Because, of course, from YouTube videos you can learn, but systematically it's not that best idea to learn just following a YouTube video.
Because there are things like technique that you miss out on as well.
Yeah, techniques and also just like systematical knowledge. Be like, oh, this is this chord followed by that chord.
Like identifying patterns, right?
Hence the movement. Yeah, identifying the pattern. True. So either that or like finding music sheets for pop songs are they vary a lot online. They're not very uniform.
They do.
And yeah, the difficulties, sometimes it's too easy, sometimes it's too hard. So I'm kind of like, okay, I know my students' best capability, so I try to cater it to also to my students if I have the time and if I am willing to
put in the time.
yeah. Because I also had students that do fine with online music sheets that I can just purchase and have the PDF on my computer. So that is that. In Indonesia, maybe it was a little bit different that because I had like a system in the music school that we followed,
like
ABRSM. We mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
So again, a slow recap. ABRSM is Associated Board of Royal School of Music.
Yeah.
And
it's based in the UK.
It's based in the UK, but the exam board is worldwide.
Yeah.
So my music school used that, but I did not have to do much of my own research, so to say. Because there's always also they hand in also CD or like something, like the audio. At least I had it.
Don't do. Yeah, there are some books with audio. There are some books that are sold without the audio. But either way, with the YouTube now, it's quite easy to find recordings.
Yeah, that is.
Like people will record and just put it online.
Yeah, but since it's very well known, and they also provide like theory books, they provide scale books,
sight reading books, oral books. They cover basically all the grounds.
They cover basically all the materials that you need for the exam. So I was more how to say this? Like, I just follow the flow. You know.
Yeah.
I don't.
But the other thing is, it's mainly classical music, right?
It is. Oh yes, yes. So, ABRSM, for those who don't know, it is a system that you play. At least in our years, you play 3 songs, 3 pieces.
Still the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. One is usually more like baroque. One is more classical, maybe a little bit towards romantic. And the third usually is...
The one is 20th century.
Yeah. Or very late romantic.
They did change the system, but the idea is the same. You have like 3 categories.
They changed the system, yes.
And then so now it's not bound by periods. It's bound by, I cannot remember how it was. Like I
Yeah.
think there was some things about like different characteristics of the music.
Yes. I have heard that as well. Like they don't do based on periods anymore.
But the ideas still the same. So you have to pick 3 pieces, one from each of the categories.
Yeah. They
Mm-hmm.
because right now I think ABRSM, as far as I follow the repertoire, now they
Mm-hmm.
include a lot more like modern composers, like
Yeah.
20th century, like actual living composers that still
Yes.
live right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is interesting how it progressed. But back then, I didn't make my own material. That's my point. I was, I was told by also my boss, kind of like, oh, yeah, you should integrate this, blah, blah, blah. He kind of gave in a little bit of like,
Input advice.
yeah, advice to my teaching, but now I'm totally free in Germany. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
all my bosses in Germany, because I teach in 4 different music schools,
Yeah.
all my
That's a lot.
bosses, all my bosses be like, you do you, you know what you're doing. Yeah, whatever the student wants. So basically, my
Mm-hmm.
students now range from like learning classical or even like children learning basics, fundamentals,
Mm-hmm.
to like mothers, like the age of my parents, 50
Mm-hmm.
something. And they're rekindling the learning piano basically.
Mm.
And
So they've learned piano before.
yeah,
They're relearning them.
yeah, and
Mm.
also they're just very, I mean, how do I say this? They're all very different, all my students. Like what materials
Yeah.
they want, classical, pop, some are jazz, some are metal. I
Mm-hmm.
had also like kind of like songwriting students, arrangements that he just brought in his own songs, and we talk about the arrangements, how he could improve or what, so on and so forth. So it was
That's really cool.
a lot of a mix, which yeah, it is really cool. And I think that's it. How about you? You want to start, Fish? Oh, Fish is Felicia's nickname. If sorry,
Only from you, Audrey.
only
You're
from
the only
me.
one who calls me Fish.
Yeah, it's a love nickname.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I've been teaching for less than you, around 2 years in Singapore. So, for the record, me and Audrey, we both studied in Germany, which is how we became friends. And then after I graduated, I came back to Singapore, and I've been working as a music teacher since. So
Ooh.
I work is my full-time job at one music school, unlike Audrey. Busy bee. Uh, so I have number of students right now ranges around slightly past 50, with the majority, like about 2/3 of them are females, and about the remaining 1/3 are males naturally. And then I teach a lot of young kids. Like the youngest are around like 5. That's the most standard like young age to start at. So a lot
Oh.
of beginners. They make very great stories. They do very funny things in class, very entertaining.
Yes.
Kids, very unpredictable.
My youngest is
And
6.
then, yeah,
Sorry to cut.
no, it's fine. 5 and 6, very close in age, very fun.
Yeah.
They do the most unexpected things. Yeah, and then I have some students who are like teenagers, also beginners. So that was quite fun also.
Oh, I
And
had
then a
those.
handful of adults. Yeah. So that's kind of like the demographic. And then most of the lesson time, most of them are like 30 minutes. A few of them are doing 45 minutes, and currently no one is doing 1 hour. Maybe there is one person on and off, like similar story to you. So it's like, this is an adult student. She does maybe at once every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tries to do once every 2 weeks, then maybe about 1 hour at once. It's a better
Mm.
use of time.
Yeah, I think
It
my
is.
student that is like 60 minutes every 2 weeks is also an adult. I think
Mhm.
that is a little bit better for adults, I believe, just because they don't necessarily kind of have a certain goal. Their goal usually are just to play, and they kind of
Yeah.
dig in deeper rather than just
Yeah.
kids, you know?
Yeah. But I think the other thing is like for adults, because I'm also taking a composition class and my class is also once every 2 weeks, for
Yeah.
the reason that it gives me more time to work slowly. So
Yeah.
I can dedicate a smaller amount of time each day, because like asking me to take out 2 hours every single day to work on composition or something, it's quite impossible.
I understand that. Yes, I understand that completely.
Yeah. So like if I extend it to 2 weeks, it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to manage. And I assume that's the same thing for some of my students as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. And unlike you, because you do create your own materials, most
Mm-hmm.
of the time I use a method book.
Mm.
Yeah, so we use a method book. It's called Piano Adventures. It's becoming quite popular, I think, as of recent,
Yeah.
in the last few years maybe. I'm not so sure when it became a thing, but Piano Adventures, because they have a full series, so they cater to young kids, like 4 or 5 years old. They have another series. They have another like primer book for children around 6, 7
Mm-hmm.
until around 9, 10.
Mm-hmm.
They have an accelerated for older beginners. They have an adult
Ah.
beginners as well. And then they have like the main book curriculums as well. So it's like level 1, level 2, A, 2B, 3A, 3B, and so on and so forth. So it's very comprehensive. And the nice part about that is that you can just pull materials from different books, because some songs overlap,
Yeah.
like,
That's.
but some of them don't. So that's
Mm-hmm,
really
mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. I also noticed that because I'm free to use anything that I want. I also use a method book, but it's my own choice to use that method book. I used
Mm-hmm.
Tassenträume, which is in German called Keys Dreams, like keys and
Yeah,
as in keyboard dreams.
keyboard
Um,
dreams. Yeah.
and yeah, they are not as comprehensive, I believe. They're more like just direct book 1, book 2, book 3. And
Mm-hmm.
it gets harder, but some parts of like book 2 beginning and book 1 ending sometimes are overlapping. Some parts are easier, some parts are harder. I think
Yeah.
that's the gist basically of most books.
Mm-hmm.
That's the introduction, and the end of like the previous book kind of overlaps a little bit, so you can
Yeah.
switch back and forth before really
The
introducing to.
transition is a bit smoother,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
right. So
Yes.
continue to you again.
Uh,
Sorry.
no, it's fine. So most of my students are using the Piano Adventures, and then once in a while I look for outside songs,
Oh, so like
but depending on the students, yeah.
from like online or how?
Usually online, because I
Mm,
don't have a lot of time to make my own materials. I did when I was starting out and I had fewer students, and then it became a bit hectic. So right now I don't really do my own materials.
that's interesting. That's interesting. That is very interesting because at one point when I had 30 students and because I
Yeah.
made a lot of materials by myself, at some point
Mhm.
I had this like library of materials like that I
Mhm.
could just recycle for different students. So I kind of have my own kind of curriculum, as so to say.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting that you also brought that up because I totally understand you. I make materials usually when I'm on holiday actually. That's when I just like produce a lot of materials, put it in a bank, the bank of materials, and then
Your library.
yeah, and then just like
Yeah.
pull one by one every week.
Yeah. I think a few weeks ago I did have, or maybe a few months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, I went on this like rampage just looking for materials, because I wanted to get my students to play pieces that were more like classical,
Mm.
but it's not easy to find pieces like classical music pieces that sounds nice, that were written for like, you know, early
There
beginner.
is a
What's the other name for
website
beginner?
actually.
Or like late. So I went for InSlip and I realized that you could source materials by level of difficulty. So I downloaded quite a few. I found quite a few.
I mean,
Yeah.
I found a website that has like like watered down arrangements of classical pieces, so you can
Mm-hmm.
start introducing classical music to like very young age students
Mm-hmm.
because it's watered down. I think it's
Yeah.
like called makingmusicfun dot something dot net dot com.
You have to send me the link later.
I will send you the link later. This is
Yes.
not an advertisement for that particular website, but it does have some good materials. And
Yeah.
I mean, I have downloaded some of their sheets for the necessity of like just
Mm-hmm.
banking stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do have to mention also because the method book that we use is Piano Adventures, but the system, like the syllabus, similar to in Indonesia, we also use the ABRSM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's for classical music, and then we also use Rock School,
Mm.
which is also from the UK,
Mm.
and that is geared more for like popular music, rock pop music.
Mm.
Yeah, the I mean the skills that they have is somewhat similar. Some differences here and there. They have the pentatonic scale inside.
Mm.
They have the option of doing improvisation instead of sight reading.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a lot more fun. That's a lot different. Nah.
yeah. It's very different
Yeah.
skills. For some of them, like improvisation is very different skill from sight reading. I think it's
Definitely.
good to be able to do a bit of both.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then the oral side is also quite important. I think they have different oral like listening things also, because like from the get go,
Mm-hmm.
like the level before grade one for rock school, one of the oral tests is to identify major and minor chord.
Oh, that's interesting start.
Yeah,
That's interesting
yeah.
start. But it's
But
also
you can see
good.
that it's a good thing
It
to
is
kind of
good.
get started on
Yeah.
that. So I just pull kind of things like this. I just pull them into other lessons. Like if I have 5 minutes left,
Mm.
and I think the student, I don't want to ask the student to repeat one more time, right? Like the piece they're learning that they
Yeah.
played like three times already.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just be like, okay, let's switch to this thing. I'm gonna play this. You tell me what it is, kind of thing.
Yeah, I also do that with my students
Yeah.
because especially since I don't have like a specific curriculum from the school necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
I always like to start my lessons with like warm up and end with a cooling down activities. So not
Yeah.
focusing on what they are learning in the song, but like
Mm-hmm.
something to do with it, you know, like
Yeah.
learning a bit of theory, learning a little bit of oral or like ear training stuff, or
Yeah.
like a little bit of scale in the beginning, just also to warm up so they're not like directly jump into the song. I don't know. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I like that.
Usually, I have my students just do the revision. So whatever they practice for the week, that's what we start with, and then on to the next song. Because the Piano Adventure series, they do move like they don't go very fast. So I think give the students a lot of chance to build their own independence.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually just try to be like, okay, let's start the next piece.
Mm-hmm.
What's the note? Where do you put your hands?
Mm-hmm.
Is the first note? Is it step or skip? Which hand starts first? That kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
just asking these questions.
Right. That's. I mean, for some students as well. I also. Huh. No, I always try to start with scales, but it's very brief, and then like slowly going to the. Okay, let's check in what you did last week and stuff.
Yeah. With some students, I have them do Hannons, depending on the age.
Yes.
So if they're around 9 or 10, I might just be like, okay, Hannon.
Yeah. I also alter with Hanan as well.
Mm.
Hanan is good, especially just because it's very like pattern based.
It's pet.
So you don't really need to tell them the notes. As long as they can follow your fingers, it's good. But
They don't always follow the fingers. Halfway through, the pattern starts changing, and you're like,
How did
what
that
happened here?
yeah, how did that happen? How did we end up here?
Yeah.
But I notice with my students that play Hanon, especially, is that I don't like them to play the Hanon like completely like 2 octaves, for example. I would
Oh,
yeah no
you make them do 3 octaves?
no I would stop them like. For example, we take the most basic Hanon, the first da
Yeah,
dee da da da
the
da
first
da
one,
dee
yeah.
da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
That one. I would make them do one set da dee da 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 da, and then try to analyze their postures, and then continue da da
Mm-hmm.
da 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 da, analyze, and then da 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 da, and so on and so forth, until at some point,
Yeah.
I'll like after like a couple weeks of doing that, like stopping and putting time to fix the posture and stuff, and so after a few times, I could reduce the amount of the checking postures, either da
Yeah.
dee da 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 dee da 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 da. So 2 sets, every 2 sets and stuff like that, until they can play 2 octaves or like at least 1 octave well
Mm-hmm.
without stopping.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I like about Hanon, because then you're not confused with the notes necessarily. You're just like, okay, I just switch my
You get to focus a lot more on the technique,
yeah.
because with pieces, when you're thinking of the notes, you have to change your hands, you have to move your
right.
hands. There's no time to
And
think
then
about technique.
positions and whatever.
And then staccato, legato,
Mm-hmm.
rests.
Rests is another whole issue.
It is holding notes as well, actually.
True.
They're hand in hand.
Even for
They come hand
me,
in hand.
sometimes when I teach myself, aka practicing, oh, if
Mm-hmm.
I already usually I like to go through the song. I try to already get with the like staccato, like the articulations, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the jizz. But sometimes I make mistakes and I just realize it after I got the song kind of done. And be like, damn it, I forgot that one phrasing there. I need to
You
repractice
had to
that.
relearn it. Yeah.
Yeah, basically teaching also helps with noticing those stuff, I guess. It
When
makes
you're
you
learning new pieces by yourself, right?
think also more critically.
Yeah.
Especially
it
I
does.
have students that are very they like to challenge themselves. So they pick
Mm-hmm.
hard-ish songs.
Oh, yeah.
So I gotta practice as well for those songs. And I
Yeah.
mean it. Like I need to actually practice for it if I have to
Yeah.
play for them. Like I cannot just sight
Mhm.
read the songs. So those are fun. Like
It's a good challenge, right?
yeah, you're basically also still learning, because then you also notice stuff that you wouldn't probably necessarily notice
Yeah.
when you're only learning it by yourself, and then you'll hear somebody else playing it, be like, I is it you who's right or is it me who's right? Sometimes you miss yourself.
Mm,
Story.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry to distract your
No. It's fun. I like listening to your stories.
yeah. Do you want to tell something else?
Not that much.
I mean, yeah,
I think I'm pretty much done.
for the basic ground, I think we're done.
Yes.
Do you want to do a little fire rounds?
Yeah, we can go for it.
Okay. Okay, we are. Wait, hold on. Name one aspect you get better at through teaching.
Wait. The question is, name one aspect you get better at through teaching?
Yes.
Like we get better at playing through teaching or something?
For me, probably sight reading. I get better in sight reading through teaching. Which?
For me,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You first.
Oh, for me, probably also sight reading.
Uh huh.
or looking for new pieces more efficiently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, scanning through.
Yeah.
It's another whole skill. All right. Which spectrum you teach the most? Like the level.
The level.
Yeah. I can tell
Right now, yeah.
I can tell
No,
yours
you can go first.
directly. I think yours is like beginners
Yes.
based on our
Complete beginners.
conversations. Can you guess mine?
I probably go for late elementary, early
Yeah,
intermediate.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. Good.
Teenagers.
Which genre you prefer to teach?
Classical. I'm quite used to this now.
Oh yeah, you're back to classical. For me,
I am.
I enjoy teaching songwriting a lot actually. Because I also like to get like a little bit like, oh, you can do this, you can do that, whatever. This
Inspirations, right?
Yes,
Ideas.
ideas. I like playing with ideas. But if in terms of genre for playing and teaching, I actually like film music. Some of my students like film music, and I also love film music, so I love teaching film music.
Actually, I like to change my answer
What? Then what?
from classical music to teaching from scores
Oh, teaching film
because I
sources.
do like pop music.
Yeah.
Like teaching pop music through scores as well because it's quite a different element
Mm-hmm.
from classical music.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, which genre do you personally prefer to play?
Classical.
Such a
Or sheet music.
uh
But that's not a genre, is it?
not really, but it's okay. I'll accept that. For me, it's probably pop right now. It's just the easiest to play. Sorry to say. Yeah. What else? Um, do you have any other quick fire?
Do I have any questions? Off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, I guess then we can finish up early. This is a little bit shorter episode than last week, but it's fine.
That's good.
It's fine. We don't have to force you all to listen to us talk about stuff for ever and ever and ever. So if you guys have interest in this topic, please comment somewhere in the comment section. Or
Yep.
yeah, I mean, we also have email. You can also contact us through the email. Maybe if you have specific themes around the topic of teaching, we can bring it up to a more specified podcast about that.
In a future episode.
Ooh, one last question, which is a good one. It was actually your idea to talk about this. Teaching music.
I forgot what this about.
Teaching music through piano or teaching piano through music?
Okay, so I think at the beginning,
Yeah.
when getting to know the piano, you teach the piano through music, and over time, hopefully, people learn. I'm switching the question around already. Hopefully, over time, you get to teach music through piano
I would agree.
once they get some level of mastery
I would
of the
agree
instrument.
because, especially, I learned first I learned first the basic fundamentals of the instrument, like notes, intervals, chords, and stuff. But it was always with the help of like enjoying it. But so if you know the music behind it, it's always better. It's not just like
Yeah.
I don't learn scales firsthand. I learned the music parts first, but by having the fun. Right. Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, that's a wrap.
So, goodbye.
Goodbye. See you in our next episode.
Yes.